All right, ready? Here we go.
I'm always ready.
You do say that all the time,
But it doesn't always mean that I'm actually ready.
but it's not in fact the case.
Yeah, there's plenty of examples of me not being ready.
Oh my God. TK,
Welcome to the show, Darryl.
welcome to the
How are ya?
show,
Happy
everybody.
Sunday at 12. Wherever
Happy
you are.
Sunday,
Unless you're in a
wherever
different
you
time
are.
zone.
We've
So,
got a
you want some
lot of
updates?
stuff going on. Yeah, tell
You want
me
some
what's going on
boots
with
on the
the
ground updates?
TK
Offers.
offers,
Showings. Fully
showings,
offers.
bully offers.
It's crazy out there.
It's
I put
crazy.
3 properties up this week for offer dates next week. And each one of them is priced at what I believe is like fair market value, not like I'm going to price it 200 grand under asking. Have I done that
Yeah.
before? Yeah, I'm guilty,
Good
but
areas, good
I'm not
areas,
doing it.
bad
Markham,
areas, nice houses.
Scarborough, Mississauga. And so I'm like, all right, let's just get it on the market at the right price. We'll put offer dates there, make sure we don't sell it to the first buyer and that we protect the seller and get them the most amount of money, drive a bunch of traffic to it and see what happens. All of them have steady showings. All of them, I'm getting calls from agents saying, can I bring you a bully offer?
Can I
All of
bring
them are
you a
like
bully
getting
offer,
those questions.
please,
What's your
sir?
client's expectations? I know the price is just a price. I'm like, really? Have you checked the comps? I said, this is the price. This is the last sale price. But the market's heating up. So people are getting excited for it. And so I definitely am not trying to pump the market, but like
You said that like it's a fact.
secretly I am.
Secretly,
And
you
that,
are.
the reality is that the market's going up right now. And so, I'm not saying that this is a good thing and that this is what should happen, but really it's just what's happening. Buyers are getting excited again, and that the rate predictions on rate cuts this year are getting out of hand. People are really, really, really banking on those rates coming down later this year, which may or may not happen, Joe.
Well, this even the story in the mainstream media has changed with regards to rate cuts. They seem to be getting less frequent and further away. But I mean, we keep
What do you
talking
mean?
about this.
Sorry,
Well,
explain that.
a few months ago they were saying rate cuts are coming really soon, and we're going to get like down to 4% in a few months, right? Or down
Yeah.
to whatever, some number. It sounded very
Rosie.
well, it not, I guess depending on your perspective, it sounded rosy, but it sounded like it was like big and imminent and had to happen. And then
Mm.
what we saw through the pauses is people are going bananas again. People think pause equals cut, and they're banking on these cuts coming down the pipe, and people are going crazy again. And people just have not stopped spending money out there. I'm sorry. Like, if you go out, there's no shortage of people out there doing stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
so the Bank of Canada, if this continues, if we just hold rates and this continues along the way it's going right now, in Toronto and Vancouver, especially, and probably Calgary, Montreal, like the markets are going to take off again. And we're going to leave the
That's without
Bank of
any rate
Canada.
cuts.
We're going to leave these guys no choice but to say, hey, like, what are you fucking idiots doing? We're trying to slow down this economy. Can you stop for a little bit? But no, people can't stop. Why? They like to live indoors
They
in
got
the
the money.
winter,
They got the money.
and
That's
they
the
have
bottom
the
line.
money.
The
That
people
that
got the
that
money to spend it.
combination. But the
Yeah.
combination of the desire to want to live inside something and having the money to fund it is a
But not
storm.
but not everybody makes six figures.
This is
But
now
not everybody makes six figures. I get it.
not
I get it. And so
everybody makes
one of the
six
things that
figures.
people talk about is this like, oh, well, unless things change, unless we have, you know, prices and incomes, go back to where they were 30 years ago, we're not going to have anybody here to work as service workers. We're not going to have
Yeah,
anybody
where the
who's going to be,
nurse is going to come
listen,
from.
listen, I understand. That's a wonderful theory, and I get it. Somebody making minimum wage or a wage that is not enough to be able to supply themselves with their own personal residence will not be able to get their own home, but they're still going to live in the city. They're going to live with family. They're going to live in they're going to rent. They're going to, find a place to be able to go. Like, I get it.
Red.
It makes sense. We need to try to get prices down. We need to create more supply. I'm all for that. And I'm trying to do like as much as I can on that front by, trying to find some partners to build more houses. But I'm not a builder, and I'm only one guy. So for me, I'm probably not going to make a dent in that market and that supply chain whatsoever. But the
Oh,
main thing is this, and even Darryl, he can do 10 projects a year. It's still not enough, right? So the
oh,
bottom line is people will find a place to live, that there are going to be options for them to live. It's not what we want.
oh.
Yes, I believe a nurse married to a, um, you know, convenience store owner should own their own home. I don't know. That should happen. I believe they deserve to own their own home.
But what about
But
two nurses?
two nurses should own their own home. Absolutely,
What
whatever.
about a trans nurse and a cis nurse?
Okay, Darryl, stop it. The
Okay.
bottom line is people deserve to own housing. I'm not disagreeing with that. But it's just the reality is
Well,
that
do they
prices
deserve to
in
own
a
it?
major city are not easy for everybody to own properties,
But do
and
they
that the vast
deserve to
majority of
own it?
housing is owned by people who have owned it for a long time. Some of them have generational wealth. Some of them are high income earners in the top 1 or 2%, which, yes, six-figure income, you're in the top 10%, whatever it is.
Is this
You're
thing
you're
working?
you're sorry, you're a heavy hitter. Okay.
Why do
But
they deserve to own? I don't understand. Why don't people deserve just shelter? Like, why is it ownership?
because
Why
it's a Canadian dream, people want to own houses. Darryl, it's that time.
again?
Do you know what time it is?
I know what time it is, but people don't seem to listen.
I don't think anybody else knows what time it is. It's time to like, comment, and subscribe. This is the only thing that keeps us going every week. If we don't have
That's right.
those things, YouTube does something weird and then we can't even upload our videos. So, guys, like, comment, and subscribe. Please save our channel.
Save the channel and save the human race while you're at it. And don't
Save the
forget about
children.
the Clips channel
Oh, yeah,
where
that
you can
Clips channel is
save the
awesome.
children. Yeah.
The Clips channel,
But the dream is a lie and it's a scam and it's been unmasked. It's
I
like,
don't think so.
hey,
I don't think it's a scam. We got people
Canada's not
moving
really.
here from other countries. Our guest from a couple of weeks ago, and he was able to do it. Our hopeful guest today. People come from all over the world, and they just start buying real estate. Guess what? Why are they different from anybody else? So I'm not saying like shame on you for not doing it. If your dream is to buy real estate, find a way to do it. If your dream is to help people and be a nurse, and that that's all your focus is, and that you're single income and yada yada yada, and you got 3 kids, you may not be able to buy a house, and maybe, and
You
and
might
what's
not
wrong
be
with
able to
that?
buy a condo either
What's wrong with
because
that?
like
Go
a
and go
three.
and enjoy a nice apartment in an older building where there's rent control and live there for 30 years and live a good life. What's wrong with that?
You can't get the rent control is only in effect as long as the person that's living there is living there. But the minute that they leave, they get to set the market rent again. And so
Sure.
a new family coming here that needs 3 bedrooms, good fucking luck, unless you have money. But then if you have money, why the fuck do you want to rent a 3 bedroom in some fakakta building somewhere? It's a real screw up. And on top of the real screw up, TK,
Yeah.
is we're seeing articles come out this week from some pretty important players saying it's not enough.
Uh,
Ontario, Canada, it's not enough. You're not incentivizing enough building. The
yeah.
building permits are plummeting, and we need more
Plummeting
housing
is
more than
not the
ever.
word
Well,
to use,
10% month over month,
but
I
that's
would
from last
call
month. They said that January was one of the best months ever recorded since 1990 for housing starts.
for housing starts from
Yeah.
permits that were given when.
Well, I don't have all those numbers, Darryl, but the
Right.
bottom line
I
is
don't
that
think that
I
that could
believe we're
possibly be
building more
true.
now than ever before, and that they are increasing the amount of
Maybe it's
supply.
spread out more.
But unfortunately, it's not enough. And unfortunately, they're never going to reach those targets. But multi units are becoming more common now, and that there needs to be some incentives to be able to make this work. I mean, we've been talking about this now for how long? So
Forever.
the
But
government,
that's the thing is they keep so what I'm noticing now in my experience is that planning is actually trying to get more units out into the system. And they're trying to come up with more ways to help the developers and to make it a little easier. But planning is but one department in the
yeah,
beast. And the rest of the departments seem to have found lots of ways to figure out how to slow the process down again.
yeah,
And so we end up in maybe even worse than before, because like we've talked about, we've got projects that are kind of on hold because they can't launch because sales aren't there. But we've
Mhm.
also got projects that have been put on hold so that they can redevelop them and get more density. And what we've also seen is a lot of bankruptcies from the environment that have taken future stock off of the market, right? And so we've got all these factors that while they're trying to get more on the market, everything going on right now is actually decreasing the amount of inventory coming on the market sooner. It might increase the amount of inventory that can come on each parcel of land, but it's pushing it out even further. And
But
then,
if we've got housing starts though that are still near record highs for the month of January since 1990,
yeah,
I don't agree with that entirely. I'm not saying it's not true that there's going to be slowdowns and that we could be getting double what we're doing, but I still think that there's a lot of people who are using the tools in order to be able to create more housing. I mean, that's what the housing starts show, in my opinion.
sure. And so while they're trying to incentivize purpose-built rentals, I don't know that we're seeing much more of that coming
I
online,
know.
right? And I don't think that the incentives have been enough to really spur on much growth, if any. So we have like a serious problem that's actually getting worse while seemingly the articles and even probably the experiences of other developers. Like I know I've experienced dealing with planning and it seems to be much better now, but then it's the outside stuff. A lot of people are really bitching about this hydrant flow test right now. If you just take my site into consideration with this one stupid test that just can't be done right now till April, or you can't even book it until April for some reason. They can't even have a booking department there. I'm ready to apply. Okay. So now I'm just sitting around waiting, and my interest doesn't sit around and wait. Right.
Mhm.
So just by sitting around for 3 months, do you understand what that does to the bottom line? And so where does that go? Right. Because at the end of the day, we're all fighting for some kind of a margin, some kind of a yield on our projects for our investors, like any rental unit, like any unit coming on the market. Like how does it work when the city, and this is just one thing that literally is going to add 300 grand or take away $300,000 from the project, right? That's
Mhm.
just one thing. And then if you add all kinds of other stupidities onto things, the amount of money spent that could be used in so many better ways is just like poof into the ether.
Mhm.
And it's crazy.
But I think you're, because you're dealing with it right now, you're like, everybody's got this water flow test issue. But like, I'm sure that there's plenty of guys who are still doing a ton of planning and that they're not all in the same position as you, where they're like 100% done and just waiting on this water flow test. I'm sure there's a few guys and you can find them and you can talk to them. But, like, I think it maybe just feels that way
Well,
when,
but
when
okay,
you, when you look around.
but assuming it's not just me and that it's
Yes.
just affecting a few other people that also had similar circumstances, which they just shut down bookings in November. Okay.
Yeah.
And then they don't open up again until April. So, I mean, imagine how many other people could be in the similar situation. How many hundreds, if not thousands of units are just waiting
Yeah, but
because
the
of a
market's not there.
flow
The
test.
pre-construction market there, everyone's building condos, right? We know that.
No
There's
one's
people out there.
building.
What I'm trying to say is they're not doing the purpose-built rentals because the incentives aren't there yet. But the condo market, like pre-construction, nobody's buying that stuff. So anybody who's saying, well, geez, I need to launch. Why can't I go to get my application here? The market's just not there yet. And that, I don't think that market is going to be coming back anytime. I had a client tell me yesterday because he's in rentals, and I'm hoping that we're going to talk about rentals today a lot, which is, do we get a guest or no?
I think she's going to be here. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, the long term or the housing market, so with like landlord tenant board and all that kind of stuff there, which is just absolute insanity.
On
Okay.
top of the insanity.
Absolute insanity being a landlord in Canada. There's a few provinces that are half decent, but basically BC and Ontario, you're, up the creek without a paddle. And people want to get out of the um, rental market. And I had a client say to me, I should get into the pre-construction condo investing. People want to be in real
Yeah.
estate. They want to be in real estate and they want to have some sort of skin in the game. They want to be able to talk to their friends about, I'm investing in real estate. I made money in real estate. They know, and there's people out there who've made millions in real estate and they just want to have their share, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, but there's the inverse. Like, did you see the news? Did I send you this article? The bankruptcy in Brampton, a giant three-tower site in Brampton, just went into receivership, or maybe it went in a few months ago, but the article just came out about it. Did you hear about that?
No,
It's
tell me
another
about it.
one. So it's Brampton. It's a 1,000 units, three-tower site in Brampton. Nice
Yeah.
piece of property, and it's a company called U Developments. And so the article just goes on like any other article, and it says, hey, these guys went bankrupt and blah 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 blah. And that's it. They did this project and they did this project. And so I'm doing a little bit of research on, who owns this company and what the deal is. And as I'm doing my research, you want to hear what I find, TK?
I
Because
do.
this is
This is
interesting.
interesting.
It's actually really interesting.
Yeah.
And what's more interesting is that nobody else is saying anything about this. It's hard to even find anything on it. So U Developments, it's a guy named Mahdi Tajbakish, something like that.
Sounds
Sorry if
like the
I butchered it.
pronunciation
I'm
was
sure
good.
that's
Yeah.
perfectly pronunciated. Um, the guy is a part-time professor at Dalhousie University. Okay.
Perfect.
He has a doctor of philosophy from U of T,
Oh,
and he has a degree in industrial engineering. Okay.
smart guy.
Seems like a smart guy, right?
Yeah,
Somebody that you would seemingly trust with your money, wouldn't you?
absolutely.
And
Educated.
then, well, add on top of it, because this is the best part. If I was going to invest, this is the part that seals the deal with me, because I never heard of U Developments. But it turns out, TK, that he's the co founder and partner and the vice president of a company called Mizrahi Developments.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. So I'm going through this article and I call up their website, U Developments, and I'm looking at it.
Yeah,
I'm going,
which is,
hold
sorry,
on a
just to
sec.
let everyone know listening, that is the same developer for One Bloor.
One Bluer, and they
Okay.
also went into a receivership on another property. I forget which one it is, somewhere in Yorkville.
Yeah.
And
So
I mean, it's a deck of cards. I got a feeling that's just
house of cards
falling up
for those
apart
guys,
all over the
definitely.
place, right?
Yeah.
House of cards. Thank you. So, but it turns out that he was part of Mizrahi Developments, and now he's got, I guess, his own company. But on the website, he puts up these two properties, and I'm like, these look really familiar. I should go check out Mizrahi's site, and right, and they're on Mizrahi's site. And so this guy's out here. He's positioning like he's done all this stuff and he's got these properties and he's got this other one in Bronte out in Etobicoke or
Mm.
Oakville, I guess it is, Bronte Road.
Yeah.
And so this one is just under application. So literally, the guy's done nothing. Okay. And somehow he manages to get this property with a VTB from the owner out in Brampton. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, I guess he learned from his ex-partner. They came up with this way of doing development together that doesn't quite lead to units on the market, at least quickly and
Or
painlessly
profits.
or profitably. I mean, if you imagine that they've made some money along the way,
Yeah.
right? They live the lifestyles like they've made some
They've
money
got
along the way.
they've got investors' money. This is the Ponzi scheme of real estate investors. I don't think that they're bad people. I really don't. I think that they all are intending to make money. They have some good ideas. They maybe get lucky a couple times. They make investors money, but then reality hits. And so it's, rob Peter to pay Paul type of mentality. It's like, okay, let's raise some more money here. Let's get another project. Let's get some more financing.
Sure.
And they keep on borrowing and
It
borrowing and
keeps it
borrowing,
going.
trying to be able to make things as, keep hang on to the ship as much as you can. Hey,
Hello.
Trang, how
Hi
are you?
guys. Nice
Welcome to the show.
to
Hello.
thank you.
Welcome. Welcome.
Well, nice to
So,
meet you.
Trang, yeah, nice to meet you. I know you through Zach, and he talked highly of you,
Oh,
and I wanted to, get someone on the show who's out there active doing some deals and seeing what's going on in the real estate investor world. So yeah, and give us a little introduction.
Hi guys, my name is Trang. I'm a real estate investor, specializing in the BRRRR method and short-term rentals. Thank you
Awesome.
guys for having me in the show. I'm really excited to be here.
Cool. So the
Awesome.
Burr method, which
It's
uh
the only method. Is there another
is there
method?
another method?
Like
Yeah,
when we
What
were,
does it stand for again? Rinse,
buy,
repeat,
rehab,
raise.
rent, refinance, and repeat. So the repeat aspect is that how can you, invest your money to do renovations and pull it as much out as possible so that way you can rinse and repeat in a more faster speed.
yeah,
Rinse and
infinite
repeat.
returns. When we were
Exactly.
flipping houses, the BRRRR strategy was just your backup plan. You renovate, you make it all nice. You're like, I'm going to flip it and make hundreds of thousands because I saw Darryl do it on HGTV and I think I can do it too. And then you were like, oh, never mind. I'm not going to make any money. And so then you go and you refinance it and you're like, wow, the bank thought it was worth more money
Yeah.
than the market did. And then you have some extra cash to take it out. But definitely over the
Mhm.
last few years, the BRRRR strategy has been
So
named and popularized
So
to
the
actually
burst
be a
strategy is so amazing during the economic downturn because you can control how much value you can add and you can buy equity on the buy. So for instance, if you were to traditionally buy your primary residence, you would have to wait until the market kind of ride the waves of the appreciation,
mm-hmm,
or at least wait till the end of your mortgage term to refinance. That's what the traditional sort of like people would do or invest in pre-construction versus the BRRRR, you can find a property at 40 to 60 cents on the dollar, but you would have to put maybe
Wow.
20 to 30 cents on rehab.
mm-hmm.
And then, you can control how much value you can add by strategically renovating the property. And then once, like TK said, you go back to the bank and say, hey, this is worth more. And you can do it in a span of, I did one project in 2 months or within a year.
Mm-hmm.
And you can refinance and pull all your capital that you invested out because you were able to control the value that you're added to that project, if that makes sense.
Let's absolutely, yeah, and you described it perfectly, and I think a lot of our listeners will have a good idea, but there'll be some people who don't, and maybe we'll dig into maybe a deal that you've done recently to highlight how that works. But I just want to say something because you mentioned about investors being also buying their own principal residence or pre-con condos or houses. To me, that's not investing. To me, that's you're just buying real
Speculating.
estate and you're speculating that the market's going to go up.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
I
the BRRRR
agree.
method is a legitimate um, formula for investors, and buying it at the right price matters. Knowing your renovation, knowing your market, having the financing in place, all that kind of stuff is the only way that it's going to actually work. And so it's not like any property can be BRRRRed or any
Yeah.
um, area can be BRRRRed. But the bottom line, well, I guess any area could if you bought it at the right price, and not every property could. The bottom line is you can do it in any market because it's a strategy and that it can be applied to whatever
And
conditions you're in.
I'm
and the key,
interested in learning a little more on how you find the 40 to 60 cents on the dollar properties. Where
oh,
are these and
After
how do
repair
you find
value,
them?
40 to 60% after repair value.
yeah. So how we do that is building a relationship in the market that we in. So what we do is we focus on a market we know that works well and we rinse and repeat, but we also focus on that primary market and double down. So the key to our success of finding deals is partnering with slumlords. Sorry, I don't mean to.
Sorry, slumlords.
Partnering
I
with
mean, human
slumlords.
beings who
Hang
are great
on,
at doing their job. I mean,
Sorry.
right?
slumlords.
Sorry.
Making profits. Profit centers,
There is a slumlord market,
Underworld.
unfortunately, but
how do you
you were
find them?
talking about the previous generation of investors who've inherit properties from their fathers and their grandfathers, and they're like, I'm good. Like I've made so much money. I've refinanced this property X amount of times. I'm not putting any more money into these properties, right? So that is where the opportunity comes for value add. Because let's just say, back in the day, South Oshawa or Hamilton, there was a lot of opportunities for value add, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now everything's already been renovated and bird. So
Mhm.
there's less opportunities there. So that's kind of like how we do it. We manage those relationships, and then these slumlords have large portfolios. So being leveraging our relationship with them, we're able to sort of go shopping, you would say, like handpick and specifically plan out when and what we're going to buy per year. So that way it's more of a strategic plan versus just trying to look on MLS and fight for deals with like 100 other investors. So that's our competitive edge.
Yeah, it doesn't work. I mean, can you find deals on MLS? Yes, there are opportunities out there. There's different things, but for the most part, you got all those fees built in, those nasty realtors taking out their percentages. You got the premium that, it's being on the market. So now other buyers might be willing to pay more where, there isn't going to be that same sort of opportunity. But yeah, I mean, I believe that wholesaling or having properties bought at wholesale prices coming from people who don't want to maybe put it on the market. Give me why a slumlord wouldn't want to put their property on the market.
So we've already the reason why is because there may be problems with the property. For instance, we buy problems, and that's where the discount comes in. They're like, okay, there's a non-paying tenant, okay, or there is mold or some like a fire or something really catastrophic, something horrible that a traditional new investor would not even want to touch because it's very, capital intensive. For us, we're not scared of those problems, and that's where we're able to find those hidden opportunities. And I love that you said that, we deals can be found anywhere, whether you're looking at MLS, talking to your uncle, talking to a handyman. But for us, it's buying problems, seeing the opportunity. Like if someone just passed away, we're like, who's the owner? Let's just go get that property. We'll talk to everyone and anyone. 2 deals, for instance, we got from our drunken handyman. Like he was like, hey guys, we got a deal for you. Like we see an opportunity.
That was a good impersonation.
Daryl's laughing because
so great. Yeah. I love the honesty, and as I'm listening to you, I mean, listen, I buy off market properties all the time. The honest to God truth is that, if you hear that somebody died, like this is an opportunity. I just love that you're saying it out loud and you're not giving a shit. This is fantastic. And I gotta say, like the slumlord angle, when I first heard it, I was like, but now, like the more I think about it, it's like, this is a treasure trove of potential here. This is actually brilliance. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Trang, walk us through a deal. Anybody listening right now is just like, all right, give us a deal. Maybe you can give us a grand slam. You can give us, whatever.
So for instance, one of the first burrs that I ever did, it was a single family house in a tertiary market in Cornwall.
Cornwall.
Yeah.
It's a good market.
Do you know Cornwall? Okay. We believe it's up and coming, but anyways, so
it was called the armpit of Ontario for a long time, but maybe people should just stay away from Cornwall and focus on Toronto pre-construction condos. Okay, carry on.
Yeah, exactly. So the first property was my very first burr. I didn't know what it was. This is my kind of like, going through the process and learning. So we bought it as sort of like an equity in the buy. So the beauty of equity in the buy is like, you don't need to put a lot of renovations into it. You kind of go in, do some lipstick renos, and then you refinance, right? So the first deal, it was during the very first interest hike where the market was silent. Like no one was buying, people were dropping their prices. I think it was late 2022.
Middle of 2022, yeah.
Yeah, and to the very fall. So we were trying to finance this property. However, the banks were saying, no, it's a tertiary market, no. So they were like mitigating all sorts of risk, right? So because of that, I'm like, you know what? I have enough HELOC. I'm just going to pay cash. So we went in cash with this deal. We got it for $180,000. It only required $10,000 renovations.
Single family?
Single family house.
Okay.
Right? So we went in, we put some paint, pot lights, very basic, and then we refinanced. So within a month and a half, we got the appraiser out, and it was appraised at $260,000. So we had just sort of put only $10,000 in, and then now we increased it by $70,000 in equity without doing anything. And then I turned.
So you got like a $210,000 mortgage, roughly.
Yeah.
And so your cost
exactly.
What year was this again? What year?
2022.
2022. Okay, yeah.
So your
What
cost of the
everyone
180, that was the initial purchase price, closing cost, $10,000.
You can buy a house in Cornwall in
renovations.
2022 for 180.
you can still do it now.
If you buy
We're
right.
still, yeah, we're still doing it now. So that one, so after, like you said, TK, 210 mortgage. However, it's still cash flowing about $200 to $300. But we said, you know what? Let's just do short-term rental. You know, furnish this thing, spend $10,000 on furnishing, and turn it into a short-term rental. So it's been almost a year, exactly a year since I closed that property. And on long-term rental, it was doing, you know, let's just say we can rent it for 2,000 a month, right?
Cash flowing $200-300 a month.
Exactly. But short-term rental, we did $46,000
In a month?
In the last year.
No, in the year.
Yeah.
In a year.
So
Hold on.
so
Are you
almost
still
$4,000 a
allowed to do
month
that?
plus some extra expenses.
Yeah.
So you're probably anywhere like $1,200-1,300 a month cash flow.
Exactly.
Compared to $200 to $300.
So anywhere from 1,000 to,
yeah.
you know, 1,500 and plus during peak
yeah.
season. So instead of going from 200 to 300 cash flow, now we've grown our cash flow exponentially, and it's a self-sustaining business. It's 4 hours away. I manage it from Toronto and remotely. I only spend maybe, you know, like 10 minutes a day managing it. It runs itself.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's
So
a
hold
deal.
on. Are you allowed to do Airbnb still in that scenario?
Yeah,
Is that
absolutely.
still kosher? Okay. So
they don't really care about it yet. So we're just hoping and praying that, you know.
So, but it still works if Airbnb or short-term rental is not part of the formula on that one, and it cash flows $200-300 a month.
Exactly. So we only buy properties that work on the BRRRR method, that cash flow on long-term rental. So anything above and beyond is gravy.
And the best part is it's infinite return. You got the money back. You
I got the
refinanced,
money
you
back
paid
within...
off your HELOC, paid off your renovation money,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. And now it's just, that's an income for you. And then you go and do it again.
Yeah.
You
So
repeat.
three months after we refi, I got all my money back and more. And that's the first time I had a taste of the BRRRR method. I was like, I just got a free house in, you know, 2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
And now it pays me, like you said, infinite return. I'm like, this is insane.
Yeah. And then as time goes on, you know, you got a mortgage, you're paying down, you're building equity, you know, there's another refinance, you know, 5 to 10 years down the road where it's all tax-free money. Guys, thanks for watching today. If you haven't yet, drop us a like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell and be like Dawn, you know, get another YouTube account and double subscribe.
Double subscribe, you know, like Dawn.
You're telling everybody else to subscribe. Well, have you double subscribed?
D is for double subscribe like Dawn.
Yeah, like, comment, subscribe. I'm double subscribed. Do it yourself. Didn't get to fix the show, though. Didn't get to fix the show.
Please subscribe. And
well,
so hold on a sec. I'm still stuck on 180 for a house in anywhere close to here in 2022.
Do you know where Cornwall is? Any tertiary market like that, like, and you go out there and, like, you know, they're far. That's not like you can buy a house in Belleville or Peterborough or, you know, one of those places where people go to often. These are like places like nobody from Toronto goes to often because it's like far. It's like, you know, it's like you got to spend the night.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a passerby town.
So
yeah.
I mean, it might manage itself, but are there partners involved? Like, who's splitting the $200-300 at the end of the month or whatever's left at the end of the month? And then, like, just in my head, I wonder, like, is it worth it? Yeah, you own the house. And I mean, how much is it going up in Cornwall, for God's sakes? Even over 20-30 years is gonna...
I'll give you an example, right? Perspective. So for instance, if you were to spend $1 million in Toronto, let's just say you buy a duplex in Oshawa or whatever, it's going to be...
how much a duplex in Oshawa costs? $1 million now?
My friend just sold it. Like, he bought it for $1 million. He sold it for like $750. Anyway, so just to give you an example, right?
That's
so
funny.
You should have been buying in Cornwall. Like,
sorry.
Holy shit,
he screwed up.
I had to laugh about that, but so I want to put things into perspective. You're comparing two markets, right? So just, I'm going to use $1 million for our arbitrary numbers. $1 million in Oshawa, maybe you get like a nice house that it's a legal duplex, right? The rent would be $4,400, and you have two people paying down your mortgage. And maybe Oshawa appreciation's like 10 to 15%. I don't know, TK, you should know, or versus
$4,400
versus spending $1 million in Cornwall. You can get 4 duplexes. You can BRRRR them. You can pull your money out within a year, and you have 8 people paying down your mortgages, yes, the appreciation may be like 2 to 5%, but 2 to 5% times 4, that equals to Toronto. So now imagine $4,400 rent or $12,000 rent each month you're getting, right? So if you look at the value and the magnitude and the speed of velocity of how fast you're able to pay down your mortgage and multiply it in scale, you can actually, you know, it's comparable to Toronto, but the value is so much higher, if that makes sense.
More importantly, like the appreciation is really powerful, especially when you're leveraged on that $1 million duplex, $800,000 of the bank's money. So appreciation, it's hard to compare Toronto with Cornwall, but the bottom line is those duplexes are cash flowing, and that
Yes.
duplex in Oshawa is not. And so that's the thing, is you can't scale in the GTA. You have to be in an area where you've got cash flow and that there's yield. And there's very few markets, I think, in Canada that really have yield that makes sense. Even, you know, our friend Daniel Foch, he talks a lot about Cornwall buying. So Daniel's a smart guy. And so obviously, you know, he's running numbers out there. There's very few markets, I think, are in Ontario that do work. I want to talk about some other different things here because there's a lot of stuff. We're going to take heat in the comments. Anytime investors are talking about making money in real estate, everyone's like, boo, you're, never going to work and the market's going to crash 70% and
Greedy
you're going to lose everything.
landlords.
So just prepare for that when you read the comments. Okay. I'm just letting you know, Trang.
All right.
But tenant management, right? So Airbnb, I mean, there's no landlord tenant board. So that's awesome. But what about other tenant issues and stuff like that? Like there's tenant problems. We got a landlord tenant board issue in Ontario. So how is that a risk that you mitigate?
So for short-term rental, they're there for, the maximum a month and they leave, right? So as long as, usually we vet the tenants that are coming through our property. So they have to have a good standing based on other reviews from other hosts. So then there's a very tight-knit community that we sort of look out for each other. So if someone leaves a mess or damages the property, we want to, ensure that other hosts would be honest enough to give an honest review to the guests that say, this is not the profile of a short-term rental guest that we should keep in our community. So because of that mentality, we try to protect each other. So that's one screening. Second screening is if they're bringing a pet or anything, or if they have a long-term stay, we take a deposit. So let's just say they pay for their stay. And if it's a long-term stay, we take a damage deposit. Or if they're bringing pets, we take a deposit. So that way, for the most part, the customers who are willing to give a deposit, they're very, very good guests because they're like, I want my money back. So they're very like cautious to the point where they'll be like, look, there's a dent in the wall. I'm showing proof that it's not me, right?
Mm-hmm.
It becomes that sort of like accountability. And then thirdly, sometimes we also sign a lease with them, a short-term lease. If they're staying for beyond 30 days, we want to ensure that, hey, you're here to visit. You don't live here. You don't live in Cornwall. So the majority of our guests, if there's a red flag, would be someone from Cornwall saying, hey, booking the same night. Hey, I just want to come by for a party. Or, so for that is a high risk for us. Then in that case, we have the ability to reject that guest. So we do a vigorous screening.
But short-term rentals too, though, I mean, you can just like they're the tenancy laws don't cover them, right? So Residential Tenancies Act don't cover them. So you can just be like, send in the police, like get out of my house.
Yeah, we can send in the police, but that's.
But what about long term? What about long term?
Long term?
Like, yeah. Like, have you had long-term rentals where you've had issues with tenants?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
We always do.
Right. And so like, how do we navigate that? Because I think that's the fear. I had a client call me, well, we've been talking for a while, but yesterday we talked and it was, I'm getting out of the rental market. I'm going to sell my rentals. And then he's talking about pre-construction. I was like, whoa, let's slow down a little bit here before he, got excited. But
give him my number.
The long-term rental issues that landlords face in Ontario right now are insane. Like I'm in all the landlord groups reading 2 years to get your eviction.
Yes,
it's just insane.
So dumb.
Yeah. So my friend, it's very tough right now, especially in the GTA. As we know, there's like still 8 months or so wait.
Mm-hmm.
My friend actually just had her hearing and she waited for a year and she was $40,000 in rent arrears. And
in the GTA?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they threw her case out because there was a typo on the application. So she was so upset. And
Yeah.
I hear these stories all the time. So for
Uh-huh.
us, I think we do face
Crazy,
those
right?
challenges in
What?
Cornwall.
Another year.
What was the typo? Do you know what the actual typo was?
I have no idea.
Like how fucking stupid is that? That you could wait that long, get that fucked, and on top of it, the system fucks you a little more right at the end,
Yeah.
right? What
Yeah.
is this shit?
Reapply.
What the?
Reapply. Case
And then
dismissed.
how long does it take to get the next scheduled hearing, right? Because of the typo. And then
Yeah.
imagine how many typos have got through the cracks, for God's sakes. Like that just seems absolutely unfair and ridiculous. Has this person like been at the tribunal before, pissed off a judge or something?
Yeah, it's been a long, long process for them. And I just feel so bad, that they're going through it. But for us, like we've had tenants that didn't pay. Um, I could give you an example. There was a bed bug problem that likely the tenant brought in. Well, we don't know, but we were obviously diligent and brought out the pest control 8 times. But after the 8 times, they still claim, hey, I'm not paying. And they were in cahoots with each other. So yeah, they didn't want to pay. So it was an unfortunate event, but that's the nature of the investing world, right? However, like if you build your portfolio to enough scale that if you have, let's just say, we understand our tenant profile in Cornwall now, and we've sort of migrated to a better tenant profile that we can sort of anticipate these problems, and we kind of pivoted our tenant profile. And since then, it's been a lot more successful.
I'm gonna give you my ideal tenant profile.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, new Canadians. All right.
Yes,
Those
newcomers.
guys will make sure they pay the rent. They don't want to go to tribunals. They don't want to have their name anywhere on any paperwork that involves the government. They're trying to get permanent residency. Okay. Rent to newcomers. This is the best person to rent to. And so people
Agreed.
have
Yeah.
I have all
Jobless,
like
right? Jobless newcomers
not
No
jobless
and
credit.
show
newcomers,
income.
good jobs. Like they've just
How
come here, they've
new?
just arrived, they've been transferred from another company. They don't have maybe Canadian credit yet, but they've got a good income, or they are gonna like have a bunch of people living in one space, whatever it is. Bottom line is, Darryl, those guys don't cause problems. When you get a 40-year-old Canadian guy who's still renting a 2-bedroom apartment,
A lifer?
that's sketchy. You know, like why is
Yeah.
that guy still renting an apartment when he's been
Yeah.
here his whole life and had these opportunities? What is he doing with his spare time? That's all I'm saying. I'll leave it at that. So these are
This-
my ideal tenant profiles.
yes. Ideal tenants are everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. So going back into just some of the landlord tenant, negotiations and stuff like that. When you look at the Toronto market, the delta between what that tenant's rent is and what they have to go and pay elsewhere is huge. So when you get someone who's been there for years and they're paying $1,500, and now they got to pay $2,800, they go, oh my God, like I don't want to have to
Can't
go
do this.
or I can't pay it anymore, or whatever. There's a different mentality. Whereas in Cornwall, it's like, hey, listen, man, I need you to leave. I'm gonna give you 2 months rent. Here's $2,000. You're gonna go and find a place for like $900 down around the corner. Like just get
Slumlord
out so I can,
market.
right? And go, here's a list of apartments I can give you with my slumlord friends. And
Yeah.
so it's easier to burn those markets because it's easier to get tenants out. Where right now in Toronto, no joke. So when we're buying apartment buildings, the on the performa for the investor who's going to buy to try to reposition the asset, it's $30,000. So if he's got 10 units, he'll say, I need to put aside 300 grand to be able to buy out those tenants' leases. And some of them may not agree to it, but that's what he's budgeting for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you've got this whole push in the media where people are talking about tenants holding the owners hostage, cash for keys, right? And they're talking like you're saying what? Put aside 30 grand per door.
Tenant.
Yeah. And people are holding them up for 100 grand or just crazy numbers because now everybody gets it. Now everybody goes, hold on a sec. There's a lot of money being made here. I have rights, so pay me. Right? I don't want your 30 grand. I'll take 300 grand.
Yeah.
And what do you do? So, but this all sounds horrible, right? This all sounds horrible being a landlord in this province, if not this country. So why here I know you find stuff that works and makes money, but 4 hours away, I mean, you may as well take a flight somewhere, because that's not like, okay, I'm just going to Cornwall now, I got to go deal with
Yeah.
something, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a whole plan now to get to Cornwall to deal with something. So why not Calgary, or why not Saskatchewan, which we've had on the radar for years here, and we've done nothing. We
Missing
could have been
opportunities. Saskatchewan.
billionaires already in Saskatchewan.
Cornfields.
But why Cornwall and not somewhere else? Where they're more favorable. Forget about, sorry,
Let her
Saskatchewan.
talk, Darryl. Let her talk.
No,
You
but hold
can't
on.
ask
Like,
questions
why
and then
not
cut her off.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to make a point. Why not in the States where it's more favorable, or somewhere where the laws are more favorable to landlords?
I love your question, Darryl, because I've explored the States. I've explored Edmonton, right? So when it comes down to it, is knowing your market, knowing the connections in that market to continually to get deals, double down, finding the value, and having a power team, right? So I can go anywhere. I can go to Barcelona. I can go to Vietnam and invest and be like, oh, this is so cheap. Cash flow is amazing. My friend, I'll give you an example, okay? My friend recently did a flip in Detroit, okay? My best friend. And I'm like, why don't you just throw your money in Cornwall? I have a power team. I've done this 13 times. Like, we can do this in our sleep. We know the formula. Like, whether, even if it's interest rates or loan to value, anything adjusting in that we cannot control, we are still profitable. It's very safe. Even though the LTV is a concern, we have a formula, we have a tenant profile that works for us. And the delinquency is like less than 10%. So throw your money at us. She's like, no, I'm going to go to Detroit. I'm going to, go to this brand new market that it's cash flowing. There's so many deals. So she ended up flipping a property, and she bought it for really cheap. The numbers look super juicy, like even better than Cornwall. However, she got robbed twice. So
like robbed. Please explain.
So
in my head, I'm thinking gunpoint at
she's
like at the
obviously
convenience store.
long distance investing. You find a property in Detroit, and numbers look juicy, everything looks good. Obviously, the lenders are very lenient. They fund all the money for you. Everything's going great. She finally got her GC in. They finalized she paid for it. They finished the renovations, about to get the inspector to come out to release the funds from the lender. She's like, oh, my water heater, my furnace, all the appliances, my tiles, they're all missing. My electrical's been pulled out. I'm like, holy crap.
It's Detroit. Didn't she know? Hasn't she watched the movies?
She took the investor course, one of those like coaching investor course. Let's invest, guys. Let's go. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, cool. So 3 weeks later, I call her like, hey, what's going on? What's going on with the robbery? She's like, oh yeah, we got another GC in, because the first GC ran off. I took the money and left. Second GC comes in and trying to fix the little, finishes, right? The 10% that's left. And she's like, we got robbed again.
Oh my God.
And she's like, the place is super great. I'm like, what about the neighborhood? Did you not bet the neighborhood? She's like, no, I thought it looked good. I'm like,
it's the GC. It's the GC.
It's the GC set that up for sure. He did.
Stealing everything. So, he's bringing it there and then stealing it and then bringing it back.
So Darryl, to answer your question, the example is that, yes, you can have all these amazing, the numbers look good, the lenders are amazing. It's fast, but then at the end of the day, you don't have a power team. If you don't have somebody you trust that can execute the project, they can run off your money or rob you in her case. So you know what I mean? So that's another example of like having a power team. It's so important.
So does your power team include someone like, did you see that video that's gone around viral on TikTok of the landlord with the chainsaw cutting down the door? Have you seen that, TK?
No.
But you need somebody to help with certain situations as part of your power team.
You need a guy, my uncle used to tell me stories. He's passed now, so I can tell the story. But back in the 70s, he had a guy named Igor, and he was a biker. And when the rent wasn't getting paid, he sent Igor in to hit him over the head with a frying pan to make sure that the tenants paid the rent the next day. Everybody needs an Igor,
Igor
but
the pan.
Today people are so sensitive. I got two really
totally sensitive to being hit with pans.
Opposite spectrum things to say right now. So one of them is Trang. I believe when I talked to clients of mine mostly, and they say to me, how should I invest in real estate? And I give them, what their options are. To me, the best option would be is find somebody who's a professional investor and invest with them. That's what I tell them. I say, don't go and start trying to buy properties in all these different places. I've seen people sell properties after a year and go, it's not for me, too many times. And
Yeah.
so, the realtor benefits, but, the client lose money and they're trying to invest in real estate. So I say, find someone with a proven system, lend their money to them, and to, find someone that you trust, who's got, everything like you're talking about. And I think that's great. And people should reach out to you if they're looking. We'll have all your information in the details if they're looking to invest. But on the other side of that, we've had now 2 big Ponzi scheme real estate companies go belly up. The one is in the Kirkland Lakes area. We had one in Saskatchewan last year. Like there's a ton of promissory notes. I'm in a couple groups right now where people aren't getting paid back their promissory notes. And they're all like, oh my God, what do I do? And everyone's like, nothing, because you don't have much of a leg to stand on. So how do you feel about this? Because there's obviously a lot of risk investing in real estate. When you're dealing with this promissory note stuff, they're not accredited investors. They're just random people who this is like their life savings. Give me your thoughts.
So for me, our investors are our family and friends. So it's our inner circle, right? So for me, like it would be someone sort of asking questions for, I share my journey on social media and I don't really, so for me, they see what I'm doing, they see a proof of concept and they trust me as a person. So they've known me for many years, right? But they don't understand in the investing world. So I on social media, I educate my, my friends and family and people to say, this is what I'm working on. And I show them almost like a reality TV show, right? I show them, hey, this is what we're working. These are the challenges. So I'm very real. So I kind of unveil the curtain to like what goes on into how we do this and how it happens. And I'm going to give you an example. We just closed on a sixplex with an investor, which is a friend of mine that like a secondary tier, like a friend of a friend. They've been watching my journey for a year and a half before this. You know what? I'm ready to take action. So, I always lead with honesty. So for me, it's like, I don't approach people. They kind of come to me and then we build a relationship first. So they don't come to me and say, here's my money. I want to invest in your deals. They come to me and say, like, hey, what are you about? Let's cultivate this relationship. So it can take a year, 2 years. And then once that trust is built, and then in the meantime, I'm still making moves. I'm still proving to them that I'm able to turn a deal around and make a profit during the economic downturn. So it starts with the trust in the relationship, because if I don't trust someone, even like if they want to invest with me, I would say no to them. I would say no more than I would say yes. So I'm very specific in who we invest with. And for us, it's more of a long-term growing together. And I do hear a lot of noise in the social media regarding, investors going, having challenges and such. The reality is that we are in a recession, or we are, experiencing recession. And it's not just happening in real estate. It's happening everywhere. I'm in consumer packaged goods. So we produce products for Walmart, Costco, multi-million-dollar products, right? Every single company is struggling. If you're not in essentials, food, necessities, if your commodity is not inelastic, you're going to suffer, because there's companies that are closing down. Like Shopify just laid off a bunch of people. RBC, it's industry wide, right? So the way I see is like, when the economy is doing well, where obviously when COVID was happening, everyone's celebrating, everyone's partnering, everyone's making money, popping champagnes. But now that the economy is sort of struggling, then now you can see like the oil, or the debris is coming to light, where you can see like who is in it for the real deal or who is just in it for the scheme, right? So that's when you can see honestly the true essence of each company, how resilient they are during the recession and how they can make it through the other side. So that's kind of how I see it.
So right now you feel like the companies who are surviving this are the ones who are actually living by their fundamentals and their principles in order to be successful. And the companies who weren't, those are the ones. And Darryl's world is like this too. Like the developers right now that we were just talking before you got on, like there's a ton of receivership under receivership properties for sale right now that are development lands that were bought however long ago, and that they were putting under application, and they maybe got approved, or they maybe were close to getting approved, but the lender just ran out of money. And obviously it was a house of cards, and with the rising interest rates, they couldn't carry it anymore. Investors are the same. So I think that would be maybe something to caution people with is, you know, how big is the investor? Because the bigger it is, I think the more risk you've got when it comes to that type of situation. You know, if they're like, we have 400 rentals in Northern Ontario.
Yeah.
It's like,
So
do you really know all those tenants in 400 rentals? Have you really vetted them?
So that's why I treat investing as a business, right? It's not just, oh, buy a property, let it appreciate. I treat it as a business. So that's why you mentioned TK, cash flow is so important. That's the cushion I have to ensure that my properties can sustain the fluctuations of the market, right? Because if you're just buying on appreciation, that's speculation. That's you just hoping and praying that it will go up, right? The appreciation. So for me, buying a business that can cash flow and sustain itself, regardless whether I'm making $200 or $600 cash flow, I'm good. I can just let it ride for the unforeseeable future. And the lesson here is that do not over leverage, do not refinance so many times, pull equity and scale too fast. Because like you said, the house of cards will come crashing down. So for me, refinance once, stabilize, and then wait. Don't try to refinance again and then buy another property. So that's kind of how we're mitigating the risk right now.
So last question.
I have a note here that there was an article I read that basically was complaining that too many investors own homes, right? And all I'm hearing with the whole conversation is that I think, and I could be totally wrong, is that the incentives for people that are willing to do the work, the hard work, like you're doing, the incentives are pushing people like you towards all these houses and smaller sixplexes and things like this, rather than push, like with your talent and your abilities, what you could do with a purpose-built rental building, right, would be wonderful. But the incentives are not there for somebody like you to even think about that. But all the effort that you or people like you, and this is not a bad thing. This is just the way that the system works. Like, you're doing a bang up job. You got what, 13 properties or deals that you've done. You're making money for people all over the place. Like, this is wonderful. People like you should be somehow incentivized to do bigger things to get more units on the market for more people quicker. Am I missing something, TK?
No, you're right. And I think that's that's part of my question actually, is what are your goals, Trang? What are your long-term goals?
My long-term goals, honestly, the sky is the limit. So, you know, I just want to mention, like, there's a lot of negativity right now regarding immigration. You know, people are like, oh, Canada sucks. I came here for school and like I'm living in under negative, such horrible conditions. But I want to say that
under a bridge.
under a bridge. So I want to say that, you know, my family are actually refugees. In fact, immigrants from the 1990s. We fled Vietnam after the Vietnam War, and we sailed on a boat for 30 days.
Holy cow.
So during after the Vietnam War, there was mass exodus because there was a humanitarian crisis where almost 1 million people from Vietnam fled the country because there was you know, conflict and, you know, communism at the time. So my family was actually one of them in the late 80s. So for me, you know, my dad sacrificed this because he believed in the Canadian dream, or would you say American dream? He wanted the Canadian dream for us.
He wanted to go to America, is what you were saying.
Yeah,
though.
they wouldn't let him in.
They're
yeah,
like,
no,
you know what? We'll settle for
going.
this other country that looks like America. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so you know, we were refugees and we were, you know, we had to leave our country, sacrificing everything we had with just the clothes on our backs. And we United Nation was accepting refugees at the time, so we fled to Hong Kong. And in Hong Kong, we were put into refugee camps. So the refugees camps, so you imagine like a huge football field with a warehouse and huge barbed wires. It practically like jail, but you don't even get your private space, right? Yes, because my dad really believed in the Canadian dream. He said that Canada is a land of opportunities. There is no bottom in Canada. I'm like, what do you mean, Dad? There's no bottom. He's like, yeah. The worst that can happen is you can be on welfare. I was like, what is welfare, Dad? He's like,
It's true.
so you can't be homeless. So if you can be on welfare, if this is the land of opportunity, the world is full of endless possibilities. So he almost gave me this, he instilled this in me, right? So having that sort of hunger and having gone through the sort of first wave of like the real refugees in the 1990s into Canada, my mindset's very different. I have a different perspective on being an immigrant because, you know, Canada gave me that opportunity to thrive, right? My parents were in survival mode. They came here with nothing on their backs, working 3 jobs, giving me the opportunity to thrive. So I'm thriving in real estate. You know, I grew up in Jane and Finch. I didn't have anything, but how was I able to grow my portfolio in a year? It's because I was given that opportunity, regardless of who you are. If you know the code, if you can crack the code, you can make it happen, right? So I'm not a person of my circumstances. I made something of something that Canada gave me. So that's my perception on Canada. I know there's a lot of negativity, but it's about perspective for me, right?
Beautiful. And we love
Yeah.
Canada too. And I think that some of the people coming here are also in that camp where they're new to Canada, and yeah, they got lots to complain about here, but they're also very thankful for it. And that most of the people I hear complaining about Canada are Canadians. They don't really have that perspective, but there are some new Canadians complaining. I'm not going to say and all these big absolutes, but Trang, can you give us a little bit of a shameless plug here where people can find you? So that they can follow you and connect with you and maybe get some help from you. Where can people find you on your social media?
Yeah, you can connect with me on Instagram. I'm mostly active on Instagram. It's mhowher investments. So I guess you can kind of put the
We'll put a link in
link
the
below,
details.
but yeah.
But for people just listening, there you have it. There's Trang, and you guys can connect with her. Thank you so much, Trang. This has been
Thank you so
awesome.
much for guys for having me. It was a lot of fun.
You're amazing.
Okay, great. Bye.